I seriously need your help for a second. If you guys ever find out who started with the customer's always right, please let me know, because today we're going to jump into that topic. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Another episode of the Work and Talk podcast. The podcast for tradespeople by tradespeople. And your fellow builder is here, Will, and we're going to jump into today's topic, where sometimes you just got to say no to a customer. Sometimes no means no. And we're going to go about how to go about that, how to spot the red flags, but most importantly, how can you communicate with them? We got to understand that not every customer is going to be for us. And we have to see why that's so important, why we got to spot those issues right from the beginning, and most importantly, how do we keep our reputation sound and clear? We're going to see why this applies to apprentices, but most importantly, to us contractors out there who are going out in the field who maybe just quit their job, who maybe just put and are using up all their savings to make it big or hit big as a contractor. And guess what? Saying no to a customer, I don't know, man. I'm telling you, I don't know. That might sound... Can you guys relate? How many of you guys right now quit your job within the last year? And I want to know, did it cross your mind to start saying no to customers? I want to know what you guys think down in the comments. Please let me know. For the ones who've been in contracting a few years now, you guys already got some callus. You guys already got some rough skin, true or not? You guys aren't afraid to say no. You recognize right off the bat, not every customer is your customer. So what are we going to do about it? How can we learn? What are some of the red flags? We're going to jump into it. We have that for you guys today, and I can't wait to share it with you guys. And I want to know what you guys are thinking throughout. So at any point, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, feel free to drop it down in the chat. But we're going to touch on these 3 key points, all right? And we want to remember that saying no, even though it may feel risky, even though saying no goes against everything that we said, because what are we thinking? We're coming into contracting. We want to be of service. We want to find customers. We want to grow. Not only do we just want to come into business, we don't want it to fail. So the idea, the notion of I'm going to tell a customer no, it's far from us. We're over here by our bootstraps trying to do everything we can. We're trying to find work. Not only does that not make sense, but we're trying to find work, and now you're telling me to start filtering things out? But guess what? We're going to find out why you need to do that from the beginning, because only as you grow, you're going to get even bigger and bigger, and you need to save your time, most importantly, your reputation within your industry. And then to do that, we're going to have to identify some red flags. Why is this important? Because so many of us who come into contracting, we learned the hard way. We jumped in, we hit the ground running, and guess what? We found the customers who don't want to pay us. We found the customers who are just looking for the lowest price out there. We found the customer who's shopping around. Now, shopping around, granted, that's the smart thing to do, but they're shopping around with the intention of trying to lowball. We also find out there's some industries, there's some other people, there's other companies that we just don't want to do work for. We're going to talk about some of those today. And guess what? When you start seeing these types of jobs, these opportunities present themselves to you, because it's going to pop up. Now, every one of us at least was warned before getting into it. And then most importantly, we're going to understand, even though we're going to say no to a customer, even though we can't work with them, even though they're not the best fit for us, how do we communicate that with them? How do we find out the best way to say no? Because guess what? They can just still write a bad BBB review about you. They can say, hey, he doesn't want to work with me. He da-da-da-da-da. All in all, understanding that no is a full sentence, understanding that every customer is your customer, we have to be aware that, hey, even though they're not our customer, they can leave a bad reputation about your company. And here at Energize Us, here at the Work and Talk podcast, we want to make sure that we're building builders, but most importantly, leaders within the industry. So let's jump into today's topic about when to say no to a customer. And that starts off with identifying the red flags. And over here, I have a list of 3 things that are really going to help us to understand some red flags when it comes to contracting, when it comes to an apprentice if you're in the trade. You can also apply this to people who you want to work for as an employer. Or if you are going to do the, side work, what are the types of customers you don't want to work with, okay? So 1, The unrealistic client that they want steaks on a McDonald's budget. Sure, now we all have been there. This goes hand in hand with the lowering the prices, shopping around to intentionally have you lower your price. We meet so many individuals out in the field who are shopping around. They want XYZ done, but they only have ABC budget. That should be an automatic red flag. Or if you give them your price, they keep saying, hey, what about this? What about that? Can you lower this? Can you lower that? Are they in the market for you? Or are they in the market to get the job done for the best bang for their buck? That's something you want to keep in mind. Now, I understand, and granted, times are hard. You got to find the right client. You got to also find some work. But you have to make sure that whatever you do, you're not putting yourself in jeopardy. If you want to understand your numbers, if you want to understand your pricing, there's courses for that. They're everywhere. We help you understand your burden rate. But at the same time, you have to recognize that there's individuals, not everybody, there's individuals who are going to try to bring that down as low as possible, but want to keep you with the high quality, high service, high material. You take all the risk, they get all the reward though. The second is constantly changing expectations before a project starts. And that is just getting some creepy feelings on my favorite home, my favorite topic, my favorite red flag is the homeowner GC. When the homeowner GC, once again, granted, there's some good ones, but on the other hand, when the homeowner GC wants to do everything, they have these crazy expectations. They have these crazy deadlines. They don't have all the information. They don't have all the pieces to the puzzle, yet they expect you to be efficient. They expect you to show up on time, you to meet your deadlines. The famous homeowner GC should already be a red flag because that means they can't afford a project manager to run the project. That means they can't afford someone else to make that operation run as smooth as possible. So if you're coming to a job, now granted, it's not a little service job, it's not a little job that you can tackle here and there, but if we're talking about a custom remodel, if we're talking about rewiring a whole house, stay away from homeowner GCs. And this ties with one of our other ones. Guess what? Those real estate flippers. How many of you guys have made a vow as contractors to never work with a general contractor or a real estate investor who works in flipping? Why so? Comment down below. I want to know personally, what has they done to you? What's the reality of working with real estate developers, especially flippers? The reality is when you're working with these flippers, they don't have a lot of the funds up front. They want to close on this house, on the sale, to make sure that they get their monies to then pay you. But then what happens with a contractor? You're left with the bills, you're left with a work order, you're left with the piling up of permits you got to close out. All the responsibility falls on you. And guess what? You need to wait for the money to come in now based off of them selling the home. Very few times are you going to find a contractor who genuinely has the money up front to flow his guys. A lot of the times, contractors have made the sound decision to stay away from real estate developers in the sense of flippers. Why? Because now, not only do you have the responsibility of doing the job, pulling the permits, doing everything up front, at the same time, you are now at the mercy of the real estate agent who has to sell the house or the flipper. That's why one red flag for major contractors is to stay away from flippers. They want you to do the awesome work. They want you to do high quality work for little to no markup, little to no margins. And I say that's a red flag. Keep it in mind, keep it in your head, and avoid them at all costs. Now, granted, are there some great ones? Yes. Are there some who float their guys? Absolutely. But for the most part, working for developers, working for GCs, where you're the fall guy, all the responsibilities fall on you. You got to be careful with those types of people. Also, another red flag when it comes to contracting, you want to make sure you're going to get paid on time. You want to make sure that there is no issues, delays, refusals when it comes to payment, terms and conditions, as well as deposits. Deposits is a nice way for you to now secure that job, to show that there's commitment on both sides. You're going to find contracts. You're going to find employers. You're going to find GCs who work like that. Sometimes it's going to be difficult, especially when you're starting off. because you want to be competitive. So you say, hey, don't worry about a deposit. Hey, free estimates. You got to remember, all of this is going to add to your time, your stress that you have to be compensated for. And guess what? A lot of these things could be breaking down into leadership qualities. Because if you work on leadership, if you work on the importance of communication, you can spot other people who are leaders. You can, just like you can spot other builders walking around with car hats and boots, who like to work with a hand. You can spot a builder. If you're in a leadership position, a true leader, you can spot other leaders by their qualities. So that's why in one of our classes, when it comes to leadership, we jumped in and built our own chart. And it's called the builder's traits. So here in the builder's traits, we identify the identifying markers of great characteristics of individuals that you may want to be in business with. What's so valuable about this chart? It doesn't only apply to myself as a leader of the type of person I want to work towards being, but it also applies to the type of individuals you want to hire, types of customers you want to work for. And guess what? A lot of the people don't want to start screening their own employees because I might have to let them go. What about looking at in the mirror? Oh, wow, I'm lacking in some kind of areas over here. I'm not doing so hot. But what happens if you're going to a customer and you recognize they may have a lot of work? They may have a lot of opportunities to give, but their character, I got a gut feeling about them. They're not being honest. Their trust level is kind of low. The vision for the project, they don't have all the information. So when we broke down in this chart, we broke it down to identify capacities, traits that we have in our lives, as well as our team's character, trust, vision, work ethic, skill set. How can you apply this to a customer? Instead of work ethic and skill set, say the workload. So we're swapping physical work for workload, work opportunity. It may be high, but what if their character, trust, and vision is low? I don't care how much work they give me if they're not going to keep their word, if they're not going to pay me on time, if they're not going to be a person of character. I'm okay with losing that job. I'm okay with avoiding that headache. That's the same thing we want to do when it comes to contracting, when it comes to being an apprentice coming into the trades. What type of employer do you want? Do you want a guy saying, hey, I work really hard, but you're going to be on your own? They have no character. They're showing up drunk. They're always dirty. They're looking like a slob. They're cursing. The trust, you don't trust them to pay you on time. They're slacking on the payroll. Guess what? Oh, it's Friday. How about Monday? Monday comes, still late. Their vision for the company, they have no vision. We're jumping job to job, check to check. These are some things you want to keep in mind, either as an employee, either as an apprentice, or a contractor when you're looking for the right customer. So all these things help you to identify these red flags. These are red flags for a reason. And when you find these red flags, you want to be able and be comfortable with saying no. No means no, just like what we teach our kids, right? But why is saying no so valuable? It's truly a superpower. Why? Because it protects your reputation. True or not? I want to hear from you guys. True or not? This one's going to hit home. True or not? There's times you've taken a job when you knew you shouldn't have because you wanted to be the nice guy. How many times have you taken a job? You wanted to be the nice guy. You wanted to do somebody a favor. Help them out. They're in a tight spot. They're in a pinch. You stick your neck out for them. You do the work. Something happens. Now you have to deal with the consequences. True or not, we all been there. You take a job, all the fault falls back on you, even when you were trying to help out. That stings the most because you were genuinely trying to be a nice guy. You were trying to help out a friend in need. You're trying to help out a customer in need. And what happens? It's either a permit that wasn't get pulled, you got snagged, you got busted. Something happens and now you're left with the headache. You have to understand that gut feeling sometimes you get, those red flags, is there for a reason. You got to say no to save your reputation. Even if the job goes good and the homeowner has a bad experience with you, now you have to deal with the consequences of a Karen talking bad about your company. And guess what? Yeah, you can write a BBB review, get it eliminated. Yeah, you can contest it. But at the end of the day, it's still taking time away from you on what you have to focus on. But it also avoids overloading yourself, because sometimes just saying yes to every job is going to stretch you thin. We've had many individuals that we're talking to, that we're working with, who can't say no to a job. They love every opportunity that comes to them. And guess what? Every job that comes in is money in the bank. Guess what? If you have one issue, like we talked about in our last Work and Talk episode, cutting corners, maybe it's not cutting corners, but maybe you have that one job that it's a roadblock, that a hiccup. And now to go back to that job, you can't, or it's going to be difficult because you loaded your schedule up. I can personally relate to this, because this is what I had to deal with the hard way, had to learn the hard way from my own electrical contracting business. This year, our goal was to have a running mate. So I actually have a number 2 in my electrical contracting company to run it, to find the plugs, to find the leaks. And he said, Will, after speaking with the customers, the clients that I have, the contracts that we're working with, he sat with each one for an hour. What are some choke points of Will? What are some things that he can do to get better? And they all said, Will is an amazing guy, but he says yes to everything, and sometimes things fall through the crack. That hurts, because I didn't view it as an issue. I viewed it as me trying to facilitate, trying to be a nice guy, trying to work with them. But at the end of the day, I was dropping the ball the same amount of work times or more than when I could have just said no and kept the relationship a little better. You see, that's something I had to work on. I had to get a guy to teach me that, to work with that, to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. They still want to work with you. A lot of the times, these guys, these contracts that you have, these clients, they want to work with you. You're not losing work. Just space it out. To the point where over here we have some statistics where it says saying no and setting boundaries actually creates 33% more revenue, more jobs to repeat businesses based off of the McKinsey company. Wow. Do you understand that? 30% more by saying no, by setting boundaries. That is truly impressive. And the same thing that we know, so 30% of 12 months is 3 months. Having this individual in my company, our number 2 running mate, Timothy, he already secured us January and February schedule spaced out day to day. We already know exactly and booked out our calendar the next 60 days. So that's not 30%. That's almost, we're over here. But that just proved what is possible. And I'm excited to see the rest of the year. So hey guys, remember that saying no is a superpower. You are in a good position. But how can you say no? How can you say no without burning bridges? Because just like I mentioned, saying no to some jobs and space it out, you can have the other side, the flip of the coin. And a customer can say, F you, I'm going to somebody else. And rightfully so. They don't need to wait on you. They can just find someone else who's going to do the job. And maybe they may even do it cheaper. But you have to be honest. You have to offer alternatives. But you at the same time, you got to stay professional. Because they may be heated, especially if they really want this job done. And you got to just say no. It might not work every time. But that's something you want to keep in mind, okay? All of this breaks down into leadership skills. What type of owner of the company are you going to be? Are you going to do what it takes to make sure you can save that reputation? Or are you just going to say, hey, can't help you, you're on your own? What about a buddy of yours? Can you call him up saying, hey, bro, I got a job, I can't tackle it, would you want it? You guys work it out. Customer's happy. They say get the same quality. You give him a referral. Everybody wins. Everyone keeps moving on happily. Just keep that in mind. But all in all, this is why we need to understand in the trades that sometimes saying no is needed. And that could be difficult for contractors. Remember, we just quit our jobs. Imagine going home to your wife and saying, hey, babe, we quit our job. We got an opportunity, but I'm saying no. What the heck? You just quit our jobs. We're on our last $1,000. What are we going to do? We need food tomorrow. We got the bills coming up in the end of the week. Why are you saying no? I'm telling you, the gut feeling is telling me, the customers like this. If you have those conversations, not only with the customer, if you have those conversations with your spouse, with your team, nobody can get mad at you. And at the end of the day, this is all your decision. But you have to understand that all of these things are going to save your time, your reputation, and your business. Not only that, you have the opportunity for 30% more increase, but at the same time, 20% of these costs come from having these poor communication standards within the industry. So have you ever walked away from a job? I want to know. Have you ever wished you walked away from a job? Comment down below, let me know. How many of you guys been there where you actually had to walk away from a job site? I want to know personally. And guess what? I want to hear what about the ones who stayed on the job site? How many of you guys have stayed on a job site and wish you left? Comment down below, share your experiences with us so that I can read it into the next Work and Talk podcast. If you like this, feel free to check out our other videos where we talked about cutting corners, or I can't wait to talk with you again on the next season, next episode of the Work and Talk podcast. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.